So who here has a dog? Anybody? Cool. So almost everybody, a lot of us do. So those who do, we all know that dogs, they don't come well behaved. So you got to do what you can to train them the best that you can. And that's what I'm here to talk about, because I'm going to talk about how to train your dog. But before I go over a few commands, I want to talk about how they learn, and then how our mindset should be when we're training them. And then I'll go through 3 commands, sit, down, and stay, sort of the fundamentals, I think. Oh, I don't know why this, I mean, we do that yet, but I'll keep it there. So dogs they learn through a process called conditioning. And there's 2 types. There's classical and operant conditioning. And so classical would be like if I held up a treat and they started salivating, so it's more instinctive. And then operant would be how we train them. So that's like me holding up a treat and they're sitting because they're used to getting a treat when they sit. And they're basically always looking for a positive outcome like that. They're always looking for positive feedback. So if they do something and they get something positive out of it, they're going to do it again. Sort of like how when I pull out an ice cube, my dogs automatically sit because they expect to get one. And I learned that from a website called Shabbos Shake. Had some good dog information on that. And so, also, it can work the opposite way. So if the dog does something bad and you chastise them for it, they're less likely to do it again. But that being said, it sort of depends on the situation. Like my dog Luna, this one here, she's really smart, but she's also a spaz, and she likes to eat soil from the plants in the living room. And so when I yell at her, she'll stop, but then she'll do it again later. But that's because it's more positive. It's more of a positive feedback for her to eat the soil than for me to yell at her as a negative. So it sort of outweighs it. And then obviously dogs can't speak English. I don't know if you guys know that, but they can read nonverbals and sort of your body language. So it's important that when you train your dog to be in a good mindset, because if you're mad at them, it might confuse them, and then they might not know what they're doing right when you're telling them to do whatever command you're telling them to do. And it's also obviously important to be patient, because it can take a while to train your dog, depending on what kind of dog you have. And so the first command, which I've had up here for a little bit, is sit. It's obviously like the easiest one, I think. Probably the most important as far as when you're teaching them other tricks. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get a treat, and this can be any store-bought treat, any like chicken's good too. But if your dogs like ice cubes like mine do, that's perfect because it's cheap. And what you want to do is, I don't do it in this picture because they already know what to do, but you want to put your treat in your hand if you're teaching them for the first time, and then you'll stick it up to their snout. And the idea is when you raise your arm like this, your dog's head will raise as well, and then your butt will sit down. And then once they sit down, then you tell them sit, and you want to instantly give them that treat, because if you don't, then they don't really know what they're getting rewarded for. And I also like to throw in a hand gesture because I think it helps. Because now when I'm with them, I don't have to tell them sit. I just throw up my hand and then they'll sit down, which makes it a lot easier. And then the next one that I'm going to go through is how to lay down. And once again, you're going to get your treat. And you'll do the same thing with your hand with the treat. And before you do that, actually, I like to get them in a sit position first. That way their butt's already on the ground, and it makes it a lot easier, and it's already in the mindset of, okay, I'm going to try to do something to get rewarded. But you'll get your treat in the hand, and you'll do the same thing that you did with sit, except this time you'll go down. And the idea is that, like in the first picture, they'll sort of go after your hand and try to figure out what's in there. Because I didn't tell him to sit or lay down there, he just sort of followed it, and that's the idea, that's what you want. And then if they don't go down, you can always like encourage them to sort of push them down, but then once they get in that position, you tell them down or whatever word you want to say, just to make sure that they know that's what that means, and then you'll give them a treat immediately once again. And then the last one I'm going to talk about, and this one I only did with one of my dogs because it gets too hectic with all 3 of them, is stay. And it's basically the same starting steps. So you'll get your treat. You want them in a stationary position, so sit or laying down, whatever, as long as they're not standing up. And as you can see here, I have her in a sit position. And then you'll take a couple steps back, repeat yourself, make sure they know that stay is what they're doing, and then you'll walk back and give them a treat. And then you'll just keep increasing the distances which you step back. As you can see, Luna, she's not going to move until I tell her to. And an important thing with this step is that you always want to bring your treat back to the dog, because if the dog is expecting to move to you, then it's more likely to like snap out of that stay. And that's not something you want if you're out with your dog per se. Like if you're crossing the street and you wanted your dog to stay on one side, it's more likely to jump to the other side if you train it by letting it come to you and get the treat. So you want to bring it to the dog. So those are the 3 fundamental commands, in my opinion, and a lot of other commands can be built off these ones, which is why I went over these ones, and a lot of the steps can be used for other ones. So whether you have a dog or not, they're always going to be prevalent in society. So it's important to learn how to train them just to be able to understand dogs better. So thank you.